This month on the UncommonTEEN Podcast, we are diving into the friendship of David and Jonathan. They had a friendship that was so different than most of the friendships that we find today or even in the Bible. It was a friendship of trust, a friendship of loyalty, and a friendship of honor. Those friendships that we all really want, and it seems kind of hard to find. We can read about this friendship in 1 Samuel. In chapter 17, we see this teenage boy, when everybody else was scared, he had faith in God like no other. And he rose up and he defeated Goliath. Then at the end of chapter 17, we see King Saul walking up to David, asking him, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" And then this is where we pick up in chapter 18. And in chapter 18, we really see the friendship of David and Jonathan. Starting in verse 1, it says, "As soon as David had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan," this is Saul's son, "was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul." So in other words, this isn't like creepy or weird. This is just saying that Jonathan saw that there was something different about David. His faith made him stand out. And when Jonathan saw how David rose up and how he had put his trust in God, he knew that this was somebody he wanted in his corner, fighting for him and with him. So going on to verse 2, it says, "And Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. He took him in as his own kid. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword, and his bow, and his belt. And David went out and was successful wherever Saul sent him, so that Saul set him over the men of war. And this was good in the sight of all the people, also in the sight of Saul's servants." So I want you to think about this friendship. David was just a shepherd boy. There was nothing special about him. He's probably dressed in rags. He's probably dirty. His dad didn't even consider him as somebody who was important. So think about this. Culturally speaking, he was a nobody. And now you have the king's son, Jonathan, who is royalty. Their social status meant nothing to them. When those verses say that Jonathan gave David his robe, his armor, his sword, his bow, his belt, that was a sign from Jonathan saying to David that I will be loyal to you in this friendship even until the very end. And Jonathan was. Even when King Saul was jealous of David because David was more successful in battle than he was, and even when King Saul tried to take David's life, which happened many times, Jonathan was still a loyal friend to David. He never turned against that loyalty. And David was also loyal to Jonathan. After Jonathan died, David found out that Jonathan had a son who had been crippled at birth, and David took him in as his own. That is how much loyalty these two guys had for one another. That friendship wasn't something that either of them took lightly. So let's talk about it. How do we make good friends? How do we build those friendships into strong friendships like David and Jonathan had? First of all, it starts with getting rid of negative thinking. Thoughts of like, well, what if they don't like me? What if I don't know what to say? What if I go and talk to them and it's just an awkward conversation? Ladies, we have to get rid of that fear of rejection. That fear of rejection will keep us back from so many blessings that God wants to bring into our life. As a teen, I had a good core group of friends, but I still felt very alone. These friends weren't troublemakers. They are actually mostly Christians, but the friendships themselves were just surface level. They weren't like an actual good quality friendship. There was no depth to our friendship. I knew everything about them. They would always come to me with their problems, but they didn't know anything about me. And because it was one-sided, that made me feel very alone. Recently, I found a letter that I had written to God as a prayer not long after I got saved, asking Him to bring people into my life who cared about me. Even with that core group of friends, that was something I struggled with for a long time. Do they really even care about me? And so I had developed just a negative mindset. What's wrong with me? Why don't people like me? Why don't people see me as a good friend? They see me as somebody who likes to have fun, but like they don't actually know me. Lord, can you bring me somebody who cares about me? I wanted somebody who saw me like Jonathan saw David. But in order to have those friends, I had to change my mindset. I was always criticizing myself, thinking that there was something wrong with me. I had to get rid of that negative thinking and start realizing that I was made in the image and likeness of God. I had to start digging into who it is that God says I am, because what that did was it showed me that God truly loved me. He didn't look at me as a reject, so I had to stop seeing myself as one. That wasn't as easy as I would have liked it to be. But it started the process on the inside of me to really dig into that true identity in Christ. The more that I got rid of that negative thinking and started speaking what God said about me, the more confident I became in who God created me to be. And the more I was able to make friends and keep those friendships and grow in those friendships. It wasn't until I was an adult that I had a friendship that was more than just surface level. The next thing I want to encourage you to do is be willing to step out of your comfort zone. Something I hear from teens so much today is, well, I'm socially awkward. I don't really know how to talk to people. Believe me, I was in that place. That was me, very socially awkward, didn't know how to talk to people, so painfully shy. Outside of my core group of friends, you wouldn't have seen me talking to very many people. And if I was talking to them, I wouldn't even look them in the eye. I was so insecure. But ladies, when you step out of your comfort zone, that's when you truly step into your purpose. Think about when you were in youth ministry or maybe some other conference or event for the very first time. You didn't know anybody else there. Did somebody say hi to you? And if not, how did that make you feel? Did you feel alone? Did you feel like "Ugh, I didn't really matter?" Now, think about the opposite. You're in that same place and somebody walks up to you and says hi to you. How does that make you feel? It makes you feel important. It makes you feel special. It's like, wow, I can make friends here. It really makes an impact. And so I encourage you to do the same for somebody else. Step out of your comfort zone and into your purpose. If you're shy, start by reaching out to others who are shy as well. They are feeling exactly like you are. Maybe these girls are sitting by themselves in the cafeteria or off by themselves in youth ministry. Go up to them and say hi. It makes all the world of a difference. And who knows, you might just find your next best friend. I remember one time I had looked at this lady and it was like everywhere she went, she could make friends. And it was like so easy for her. And I was just like, how do you do that? And so one day I went up to her and I asked her, how do you make friends? Because you make it look so easy. And honestly, I wish I could tell you what she told me, but I don't even remember what she said to me. I probably didn't even hear her answer that question because that's when a light bulb went off in my head. And that's where that saying, if you want to make friends, you have to be a friend, really clicked. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to make friends, I've got to step out of my comfort zone and be a friend to those around me. Yeah, it seems like it's such an easy thing, right? So that's what I began to do. And I began to meet some of the most amazing people. And then I learned this acronym that really helps me a lot more than just saying hi to people. The acronym is CARE, and it stands for Connect, Ask Questions, Relate, and Encourage. So the first step in making friends is you have to connect with them. You have to say hi. It starts with stepping out of your comfort zone and saying, hey, how are you doing? It's so much easier than we make it. And then to get past that awkward, how are you doing phase, compliment them on something. Do you love their outfit? Did they make something interesting? Did they do something good for others? I don't know. Find something to compliment them on. And ladies, don't lie. If you don't like their outfit, don't tell them that you like their outfit. We want to be honest. We want to be truthful. So find something to encourage them with, even if it's something small. And then from there, you're going to begin to ask questions. People love more than anything else to talk about themselves. So ask them questions about themselves. Now, don't ask yes or no questions. Ask open-ended questions. And the reason why is if you ask them yes or no questions, it's always going to end in that awkward silence. Okay, what do I say next? Instead, ask them questions like, what do you like to do for fun? What kind of music are you into? Do you do any extracurricular activities like sports or drama? Asking questions helps you see if there's anything in common. So come prepared. Have those questions ahead of time that you can ask them. Don't just ask a question and then think about what you're going to say next. Ask a question and then listen to what they have to say. Your conversations are going to be based off of their answers to the questions that you ask them. Have you ever been talking to somebody and you know that their mind is not in the conversation? It's like their mind is somewhere else, or you know that they're thinking about the next thing that they want to say, and it's not really a conversation. It's actually very awkward. So don't be that person. Be intentional about listening to what it is that they say. And that's going to create that conversation that is going to create more conversation. And then the next step in care is relate. This is why having those conversations is important, because when you listen to them, you can find ways that you can relate to them. Maybe they're talking about how they like to draw, and drawing is not your biggest strength. It might be one of your worst strengths. I mean, maybe you can draw a pretty incredible stick figure. Well, I mean, incredible might be stretching it just a little bit. At least you can draw one, right? So share that with them. I'm not really big into drawing, but I can draw a stick figure. And that will just create some laughs. But you can talk about the things they like to draw and just create that conversation. Even if it's not something that you really can relate to, you can still try to relate to what it is that they're talking about. Now, I do want to say this. If you connect with somebody right away, like you just feel like that conversation is going really well, you do not have to share your whole life story with them in your first conversation. Actually, I encourage you, do not do this at all. So many times when we feel that connection with somebody, we instantly feel like we can open up and share everything about them. But this can lead to so much heartache, because if that person doesn't have the integrity that you do, they might tell others. If you never see this person again, then it hurts because you feel like somebody that you connected with is gone and they just kind of took a part of you with them. So know this: trust has to be earned. Don't just open up and share everything that you have with everybody. Trust slowly. Get to know them over time and let them get to know you. Keep those conversations surface level at first until you see that it's a true friendship that's being formed, and then let out a little bit at a time, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. Don't give your trust away so fast. And then the last step to care is to encourage. How can I encourage that person and leave them feeling uplifted? Do that. Find something to encourage them with. I also want to say this: not everybody is going to like you. And you know what? That's okay. I am glad that I don't have to like everybody else and be friends with everybody else. There are some people that are very negative and hard for me to be around. I pray for them, I encourage them, I love them, but they don't have to be my friend. Find those people who are going to be true friends to you. All right, so now we know how to make those friendships. Now I want to talk about what qualities do good friendships have. The first thing is, are they trustworthy? And you're not going to know this right away. You're going to find out pretty quickly. Friendships aren't one-sided. So I want you to ask yourself, are they somebody that you can trust? But then I want you to take it a step further. Are you somebody that they can trust? Trust has to go both ways. It is the foundation to every single relationship. You break that trust, you break that relationship. It will not exist. Now, if you have a friend and they have broken your trust, forgive them quickly. Instantly forgive them. Forgiveness is not a feeling, it is a choice. I am going to forgive them. But if you want to continue that friendship, you have to let that trust out slowly. Don't get super close to them again super fast. Take your time. They broke your trust. Now take your time and let them earn it back. The second thing I want you to ask yourself is, are they caring? Do they treat you like you're valuable? Do they appreciate you? Are they there for you when you need somebody? Now, don't be an overly needy person. That will turn people away from you so fast. But are they there for you when you need something? Are you there for them when they need something? Are you somebody that cares about them? Again, Friendship is two ways. The next thing to ask yourself is, do they show you and others respect? Because if they don't show others respect, they're not showing you respect behind your back. Do they encourage you? Do they lift you up? And do you do the same thing with them? You know, David called Jonathan his brother. They were so close to each other. They were closer than a brother. The next thing I encourage you to ask is, do they desire to grow closer in their walk with God? This is the most important key of any friendship. We're going to be talking about this more next week, but there is a saying that says you will become like your 5 closest friends. So if you look at the 5 closest people to you, do you want to be like them? That's a good question to ask. If not, it might be time, well, it probably definitely is time to find better friends. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. So you can have all the best intentions in the world. You can have all the best morals in the world. But if your closest friends don't, if they don't honor God, they don't love God, they don't want anything to do with Him, this verse says, don't be deceived, because you are going to become exactly like them. That's how you're going to end up. So I encourage you, so don't be afraid to ask your friends, how are you doing with your walk with God? How are you doing in reading the Bible every day? What are you studying right now? How can I pray for you? If you want to have good, godly friends, it starts with standing up and being that leader and saying, you know what, I care enough about you that I care about your walk with God. Ladies, if you take these things that we just talked about and you apply them to your life, it will change your life and your friendships forever.